Following a really successful run as the new face of Spider-Man, Tom Holland has finally been given another big blockbuster franchise to be the leading man of. And this is another adaptation. It's a slightly interesting one. This is Uncharted, a big blockbuster movie based off a video game. We've just had news that it's actually now in the top 5 of all video game adapted movies in terms of box office success on opening weekend. It sits just behind the surprisingly strong Sonic the Hedgehog from 2020, Detective Pikachu, and Angelina Jolie's Tomb Raider, a franchise and a film itself that I think a lot of people are going to draw parallels to. But what did I make of Uncharted? Well, this is a spoiler-free reaction of how I felt within an hour and a half of walking out of the film studio. It's good. Bottom line, there's a movie that sticks the landing, delivers what it wants to deliver, which is a mishmash of scenes, set pieces, designs and concepts from the Enchanted franchise. It's not a direct adaptation of any one of the games. It lifts quite liberally from particularly the 4th and the 3rd game, but the story is all new. The villains are all new, although again, I can see callbacks to previous Uncharted villains. Antonio Banderas is really striking as one of the film's main antagonists. There's some really good build-up done on his character. Unfortunately, he's not the main nemesis that Drake and Sully are facing off against, which is the mercenary Braddock. The film, like a lot of the games, the film does the really interesting thing with it has one villain that they build up quite deep and personal history of the main characters, and another villain who's just a merc with a gun, and it doesn't have much time or depth to explore them. They're just evil. So mixed results on there. Antonio Banderas for the scenes he's in, I'm all over. This is a really well-led villain from a old guard historical name of Hollywood action blockbusters. He's done this before, but he's not in that many action scenes. Braddock, on the other hand, is just a straight threat, and she comes with her own henchmen, one of them mute with muscles, and the other not mute, but Scottish, and not much else. So there's not much depth to the villains, save for Antonio Banderas' character himself. But that's fine, because this is a franchise that's always prided itself on the main characters. Tom Holland impressed me as Nathan Drake. Just picturing, if you have a picture of who Nathan Drake is from the video games and who Tom Holland is, particularly from his previous track record on Spider-Man, they look different. But putting the suit on, getting out there, getting dirty, this is a very different character to Peter Parker. His action pedigree and time with Marvel mean that Tom Holland is very used to playing CGI and action-heavy set pieces, but Nathan Drake, far more than Peter Parker, is a character who gets by on the skin of his teeth. He doesn't really go in with a plan. He just gets stuck into the action, scrambling, beating enemies through sheer willpower and persistence rather than being bigger, tougher and stronger. And yeah, there is a montage scene near the beginning where we show him training, doing push-ups and working those abs to make sure he is ready for the conflict. So it's not completely unrealistic. This is not a character who wins because he's bigger and tougher than the bad guys. It's a character who wins because he takes advantage of his surrounding and just goes for it. And that's something the movie does really well. The set pieces are not, apart from the big one at the end, not that fantastical. In fact, it's a rather reserved and restrained movie. It's prepared to take its time leading up to the moments of high tension and adventure by focusing on the cast and the characters and building the relationships between them. That's probably a good thing in order for the movie to have its own identity as being clearly distinct from the other Hidden Treasure, Tomb Raider, Indiana Jones, National Treasure type films that have come before. And whilst Tom Holland is a rather fresh-faced and excited new leading man, it's the relationships around him that make this movie distinct from those other franchises. Sully, played by Mark Wahlberg, is the one thing that's quite different from the games, and I don't think that's a bad thing. He's clearly not playing the same character. This is a reinterpretation. The core dynamic of Nathan Drake and Sully isn't established in here because it's an origin story. It did kind of bother me. In the games, these are two characters who've been through everything. They always have each other's back, regardless of what else is going on, but that's not the case in the movie. This movie really wants to explore the kind of treachery nature of people who are dishonest by their very nature, by their very professions. They're thieves, they're cutthroats, they're mercenaries. So how can you really trust anyone? The movie wants to play a lot on that, particularly with the character of Chloe Fraser. Again, another character who's been sort of aged down a little bit from the games. So this is a first meeting point between her and Drake and Sully, and it plays really well, but it's not save for the last big set piece, not that bombastic. It only follows a relatively linear thread in terms of the treasure they're hunting. The action is more designed on the characters learning to trust each other and work together more than things blowing up on large explosions. And with that in mind, I can understand why Mark Wahlberg has his own approach to this character, and he's not even trying to imitate what we've seen on the video screen before. It's a nice performance. It's not very deep, but he hits all the right cues and it's very professionally done. And I think that's this film all over. It's professionally done. It's light, it's exciting. If you draw comparisons to other movies, okay, it's sort of like Tomb Raider, but it downplays the supernatural. And Tom Holland as Nathan Drake is a far more engaging and just friendly character than Lara Croft ever has been. Tomb Raider as a movie really wanted to go big on the set pieces. These are ancient labyrinthine crypts with massive dangerous traps and puzzles designed to trip Lara or any unexploring adventure historian, archaeologist, and crush them because they wanted to protect the secrets. That's not the case for Uncharted. What this is a treasure map. This is a hunt to find the X of the thing that was hidden. Yes, there are traps. Yes, there are dangers, but it's more of a follow the numbers puzzle piece, which makes it far closer to National Treasure than it was Tomb Raider. It's a far more friendly movie than Tomb Raider in many respects, partly because of the dynamics and the fully fleshed out relationships between Nathan Drake and Sully and the arrival of Chloe Frazer. This is about teams and buddies and then working together to overcome any obstacles and then failing when their distrust of each other drives them apart. In that sense, it's got a lot going for it. Whether or not you buy into the distrust between the characters probably depends on how tired and interested you are with the whole action schlock. But I did quite like the setup here, where Mark Wahlberg established himself very early on as saying to Nathan Drake, I don't really care about you, I care about the treasure, but this is the offer on the table, take it or leave it. And the movie runs with that theme throughout. It's a little bit more of an Everyman films than National Treasure. Those movies, which are also callbacks to the Indiana Jones franchise of old, Tom Holland is in many ways a much more likeable character than Nicolas Cage's Benjamin Gates. If I had to draw a comparison, I would say that the National Treasure movies, they really tried to pay respect to American history, and they almost fetishized certain aspects of the American Constitution and the Founding Fathers' concept of American law, whereas Uncharted plays fast and loose. It's treasure from an ancient expedition. It's the hunt for gold. They were pirates, they were mercenaries. They sailed around the world and went to exotic islands. That's about all of the respect for history it has, which isn't very much, it's just a scene. If anything, I would say this is the closest to the traditional Indiana Jones film mold of a treasure hunting adventure that we've had in any of these adaptations. And that comes with all the positives and the negatives. This movie is certainly setting itself up for a potential sequel, and I wouldn't be adverse to that at all. With Mark Wahlberg's character now firmly established as Drake's buddy, the two of them as a double act who can go forwards with trust in each other, and Chloe Frazer potentially out there as a third party, the dynamic is now set, and I think it'd be far more interesting to see where these characters go from here rather than retreading this origin tale.